Peter Tsolakides has just suspended or frozen the first human body with the intention of one day bringing them back to life. Did I just say that? We have suspended the first human bodies. We've frozen the first human body with the intention of bringing them back to life in 200 years' time. The technology is not there yet and may never be, but Peter says someone has to be first to start the process, and his Southern Cryogenics clinic in Australia has boldly taken the first step. Are you alarmed? Are you confused? Are you freaked out by this? I was a little bit. I spoke to Peter, and I started by asking him, what's exactly going on here?
I'm involved with cryonics. And let me just explain what cryonics is. That's the preservation of a patient after legal death at very low temperatures, normally in liquid nitrogen. And the expectation is that we restore them using future medical technology in the far future to a patient which is healthy and in a young body.
So have you frozen a body before, or is this the first time you're looking at it, you're doing it?
We've been in operation, well, not in operation. We started for 10 years. It's taking us 10 years to get to where we are because we had to put a lot of the facility and the infrastructure together. We've had a lot of training during that time. We've worked with overseas organizations. We've got close cooperation. What we've done is this is the first patient, exactly as you said. The first patient was in May this year. We only, in fact, opened our doors officially in February this year. So our first patient was in May.
Okay, and what's this? The person who died, can you tell us anything about them?
Not very much. We can tell you they're elderly. They were in their 80s, and they were in Sydney. As I said, we're very open about almost everything except for the private information about our patients and our members.
Okay, so effectively, he requested to be the first. So he's on ice. He's now frozen.
He's in liquid nitrogen. We call it suspension. It's much colder than ice.
Yes.
Ice is only 0 degrees. This is minus 190 degrees centigrade. So.
And a silly question, but it's better than making a stupid mistake. But so where is he?
Where is he? We have a facility in Holbrook. It's about halfway between Melbourne and Sydney in Australia, near a major town there called Albury. And he's at that facility in one of these, what they call cryostats. They're like very large vacuum flasks, which basically keep liquid nitrogen, which keep the temperature very low because it's filled with liquid nitrogen. So that's where that patient currently is.
Okay, so he's in suspension. And how long is he expected to be there? And what was he hoping might be achieved in the years ahead? Because the technology is not there now to restart him, as you like, to bring him back to life.
No,
so what's the aim?
Very clearly, we offer no guarantees. The technology to suspend somebody is not too bad. I mean, it's not 100%, but it's pretty good if done properly. The technology to bring somebody back to life is not yet available. We're hoping, as I mentioned, for future technology. We're actually more than hoping, we're expecting future technology in science advances, medical, computer advances to be able to bring that patient back to life. Now, the whole idea of that patient is that they passed away from a disease, a major disease. What they're hoping for is to come back in the future, as we said, in a young, healthy body and be able to live their life again in that time in the future. And we're talking, look, many people have nobody knows, but many people have different estimates. My estimate, if you want to take it with a grain of salt, is somewhere between 200, 250 years it'll be.
Right, so this gentleman will be suspended for that amount of time, 200 odd years. I mean, if you do get to that stage where you can bring him back to life, so he'll be 200 years on the liquid nitrogen, and then you get him, then he comes to life. Somehow you restart this guy. You grab like a car, you grab the keys, and you do all your work, and he comes back to life. What does he do? Just sit up and ready to go again? How does it work?
That's the idea, and if you ask me how you do it, I don't know. No. I mean, it's like asking me 200 years ago, how does an iPhone work? How does a smartphone work? I don't know. All we know now is that there's a lot of early technologies available that show that this is possible in the future. The work being done in just curing diseases. I mean, obviously, one of the things you have to do is cure his disease. The work being done in cell restructuring, well, there's a whole lot of areas. I guess I could go through them all, but medical research, brain preservation techniques, curing aging, hypothermic medicine, cloning, synthetic limbs, sophisticated prosthetics. I can go through nanotechnology. There's a whole lot and we can discuss each of them at length. But what we see now is the start of something that may be possible in 200
Oh,
years'
it's
time.
incredible. And you've got to be ambitious and you've got to be hopeful and you've got to keep thinking and you've got to keep evolving, and that's what you're doing, and which I think is amazing. Are you available for an interview in a couple of hundred years if this happens? Because
Yes.
you'll be available
Yes.
because are you going to go?
Of course, if it happens, and again, we don't give guarantees. There's different probabilities that people put on it, but as somebody said, it's far better than the alternative. The alternative is zero probability. We have some probability, some reasonable probability, and yes, I'd be available. If this happens, I'd be available.
Well, me too.
In fact, it'll be, if this happens, by the way, it'll be nothing new at that time. It'll be old hat type stuff by the time we get revived.
What do the experts say that are here today? Because they don't know what's around tomorrow. We have no idea. We have no idea what happens tomorrow. And that's the great thing about life. We have no idea, which is the reason why you'd probably want to be suspended, because who knows what it's going to be like. So what are they saying today about future technologies to restart the body?
Well, there's a whole range of experts in this area. Some say, I'll be honest, some say it's impossible. And one of the normal reasons why they say it's impossible, because, and my background, science too, you tend to think in 5-year, 20-year timeframes when you're a scientist. You don't tend to think 200 years, so you tend to say impossible. I remember in one interview, they asked a scientist, impossible, the scientist answered impossible. And then they said, you mean impossible in 200 years' time? And the answer was, well, never say never. In better words, I really can't tell you what's possible. What they do know is that, as I said before, there's a lot of technologies now that if you extrapolate them out, it makes it possible. There's a lot of technologies available now that work that way.
Well, remember AIDS in the 80s, and it was such a scare factor, AIDS, and it was going to wipe us out and kill us. Now, of course, there's a simple medicine that you take and it prolongs your life, and you can live a very healthy and full life. That's evolving. That evolves. Health and research and medicine, it all evolves. And I probably think, without knowing anything, that it probably can be done. But who knows when and who knows how? But there'll be someone. I mean, life is a long thing. It's not done, as you say, in 20, 30, 100 years.
Agree with you completely. We tend to feel that, yes, it can be done in the future. Again, no guarantees, but we strongly believe, based on the current science, medical advances and all the rest, not based on just some faith idea.
Yes.
I want to make that clear.
Stay away from that.
We are based it on a whole lot of various scientific advances that we're hoping will get there.
What do people tell you? So the people that want to be frozen, why do they want to be frozen? What do they tell you?
Many, many different reasons. Everybody, and if I asked you, you'd probably, if you were interested, you'd probably have a different reason. A lot of them, let me give you a demographic of who the people are. Basically, they're optimists about the future. Secondly, most of them are involved in science. They may not be in science themselves, but they have a link. They're very interested in science, in technology, computer aspects. They're non-religious. I mean, if I can say that, not very religious. And 80% are men, just to give you a demographic. 80% men, 20% women is the rough demographic.
That interests me. The men think the sort of they want to last forever. They want to be here forever. They're needed. They want to be here. Someone must need us. I wonder why it's men that predominantly want to be around.
Well, just to give you an answer that mostly women tend to say, I'm generalizing here. Please remember, I'm generalizing. But basically, women are more relationship orientated, and the answer normally given to women is, I wouldn't know anybody in the future. I wouldn't have the network of people that I know. I wouldn't know my family. I wouldn't know people. With men, the answer is basically, how much does it cost and will it work?
Yes, that's my next question.
And I'm generalizing, of course, because we have, let me phrase it a little, that 20% of women that we do have are in fact more passionate about it than that 80% of the men. So on average, the women may be a smaller number, but a lot of them are a lot more passionate and a lot more interested in it than the men.
I fear death. I don't like the idea of it. I don't like the idea of not being around to see my kids, grow and be a part of all their lives and experience. And I really have a fear of missing out, FOMO.
Well,
and so this really interests me. It genuinely really interests me. And I wonder, what would it cost?
Well, the cost and, the number's going to be, wow, that's a lot. It's $150,000. Okay, that is a lot. But normally, most people pay through life insurance. And life insurance, if taken at about the average age, costs you in Australian dollars, costs you something like about $400, $300 to $400 a year. So we're talking, look, it's that proverbial cup of coffee a day that everybody tends to quote.
It's
But
true,
that's
though.
about what the cost is. Cost of about $400 a year. And that covers you through life insurance, a policy that covers you for $150,000, $200,000.
Okay, but who pays when I'm dead then? So who pays in the 200 years that I'm on ice?
Well, basically, what happens is of that $150,000, and I'm doing this very broadly,
Yes.
of that 150, about 30 odd thousand dollars is used to actually suspend you, the actual suspension. The $120,000 is, in a sense, put aside in a trust,
Ah,
and we earn interest after inflation. You know, you can work it out after inflation, and you earn something like $3,000, $4,000 a year after inflation. The main cost that we have, in fact, it's almost the only cost. There's a few overheads spread out, but basically it's liquid nitrogen. All you really need is liquid nitrogen. And the cost of that is about inflation adjusted, about 2,000 odd dollars a year per patient. So basically you're covered through that amount of money that's put aside.
right. Oh, see, we've got an electricity and gas crisis here in New Zealand, so maybe it couldn't happen here. Maybe we'd have to go to Australia to do it.
Yeah, but don't forget, you don't need electricity.
What do you need? You just need the gas. You just need the product.
Liquid nitrogen,
Yeah.
and liquid nitrogen is delivered. I mean, assuming the whole electric grid could break down for 2 months and we still wouldn't need it.
Really well. I think we've
Basically,
got
the
a
liquid nitrogen is, you know how petrol is delivered in a
yes,
petrol
yes,
tanker?
yes.
Essentially, liquid nitrogen, top up the tank
Yeah.
in a sense every 2 weeks, whatever it may be, and that's it. You don't, as I said, the hardest part, I'll go back a little bit. The hardest part is the patient at the hospital bed to get them to the facility. That is the real critical, and that's handled by a sister organization called Cryopath.
And what's
Once
your
they're in the
time frame?
facility,
How long have you got?
we've got a race against time.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is the brain, once it passes away, because this is always after legal death, let's remember, after legal death, the brain starts deteriorating. But it deteriorates at room temperature about 3 to 5 minutes. But our job is to try to get it down to, get the temperature down. So then we've got to about ice type temperature. It's about ice type temperature. Then we've got almost a day. Then we do other procedures and we bring the temperature down to dry ice, which is about minus 80 degrees. And now we've got 2 weeks. Then we take them to the facility. This is a week of procedures in all this,
Yeah.
but we take them to the facility. They're put in liquid nitrogen, and they're essentially got hundreds of years in liquid nitrogen. So there is a deterioration. The quicker we can get to the patient, so we have a method where we wait at the hospital bed, and the idea is to keep dropping the temperature, so we always expand the time before there's any deterioration.
So these people don't have funerals, do they?
I'm sorry?
These people don't have funerals then.
Not really, no. I mean, they can have a service, but not necessarily a funeral. In fact, you can have a funeral, you can set things up to have a funeral, but it just adds a complication and slows things down.
What happens? So let's say they work this out, and remarkably, in 300 years, let's say that this fellow wakes up and he's let loose back into society. What does he look like? Who does he mix with? What does he see? What sort of technology is around? Is he just an absolute outsider that cannot survive in that environment in 300 years? He doesn't have the skills or the language or whatever.
It's possible. It's possible. There's a whole lot of ideas here, and I'm going to branch out in a whole lot of different areas, but there's a whole lot of ideas. First of all, what he looks like is how he wants to look like, because obviously the idea is to give a new body, as I said, a young, healthy body. He can look like what he looked like when he was 25 years old, or he can look however he wants to look. That's not, and people, it's amazing. Here's the amazing part. People always go, wow, a new body. And I'm saying, we're bringing back a brain, which is 1,000,000 times more difficult than growing a body, which can be grown now.
Yeah.
If legally possible, you could clone a body tomorrow if you really wanted to. And we're talking about a brain. So the body is the easy part. Now he's in a society. We honestly don't even know what the society is going to be like. What we do know is that by the time our people start coming back, cryonics is a fairly normal process. Because don't forget, we're in a time period where it's not so normal. But in future times, if it's possible, what will happen is there'll be systems around at that time to be able to allow people to adapt back into the society. That's our thinking. But if you ask me 200 years ago, what would the world be like now? I couldn't tell you, and I can't really tell you what it's going to be like in 200 years.
Yeah, well, if you listen to the climate change people, we won't get to that point, so it's all irrelevant. But hey, it's been great speaking to you. You're a wonderful idea. Brilliant. What's the point of life? Well, the point of life is to stay alive as long as possible, in my view. So this is brilliant.
I agree. You should stay alive as long as possible, and we're only in there as an insurance policy if you don't, if something catches up with you.
Good idea.
Stay alive. That's our main motto. I agree.
Okay, mate. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.